Hi, sir. My name is Sangeeta Murugan. Today, my team and I will be presenting our project, which is based on the movie Oppenheimer. The film Oppenheimer 2023, directed by Christopher Nolan, is a historical biographical drama based on the life of J. Robert Oppenheimer, the brilliant physicist known as the father of the atomic bomb. Adapted from the biography by Kai Bird and Martin J. Sherwin, the movie explores Oppenheimer's leadership in Manhattan Project during World War II, highlighting the complex between scientific innovation, ethical dilemmas, and political pressure. It portrays how Oppenheimer, appointed by General Leslie Groves, lead a diverse team of top scientists such as Edward Teller, Niels Bohr, and Hannes Lawrence in developing the atomic bomb under extreme secrecy and tension. The film also delves into his moral struggles after the success of the Trinity test, his growing regret over the bomb's destructive power, and political downfall that followed when his loyalty was questioned during the post war hearings. From an organizational behavior perspective, Oppenheimer illustrated how leadership, communication, motivation, and individual values influence teamwork and decision making in high pressure environments. The story not only captures scientific triumph but also reveals the psychological and ethical cost of power, ambition, and innovation.
Greetings, sir. My name is Sarnesharan. On behalf of my group, today I'll be introducing the interior members that we have chosen. The first of which is J. Robert Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer was open to new ideas and highly responsible, which made him a good leader. But he also struggled with self doubt and later felt conflicted as his values shifted toward morality and responsibility. The Manhattan Project placed him under enormous stress that he appeared confident to motivate the team, but inside he carried guilt, especially after the bomb test. To motivate his team, he used instinctive motivations like scientific curiosity and extrinsic factors like patriotism and duty. However, in the long term, many scientists question the ethics of their work, which weaken their motivation. So, moving on to the next member, which is General Leslie Groves. Groves was a strict task focused leader who relied on military style authority to keep the Manhattan Project on track. He was excellent at organizing the resources, enforcing deadlines, and maintaining security. But his rigid approach often clashed with scientists who valued collaboration and freedom. His power came from his position, controlling over funding and security clearances, but he lacked scientific expertise, which reduced his credibility with researchers. In decision making, he prioritized efficiency and order over creativity, which ensured progress but limited innovation and sometimes lowered morale. So, moving on to the next member, which is Edward Teller. Teller was highly confident in himself, but often came across as divisive to his peers. In team dynamics, he created friction by pushing his own ideas, which weakened trust and cohesion. His communication style was very forceful and confrontational, and because he was not a good listener, this often led to conflict rather than cooperation. So, moving on to the last member, which is Ernest Lawrence. Ernest Lawrence was a key physicist and Oppenheimer's colleague in the Manhattan Project. For workplace, emotions, and stress, he stayed loyal to the US government even when it strained his friendship with Oppenheimer, showing how duty and emotion often clash under pressure. In organizational culture, Lawrence created a big science style, large scale, government backed, and focused on results and national purposes. For organizational change management, he transformed physics into a government divine field, helping establish labs like Livermore and shaping science long-term link with defense.
Hi, I am Tanshana Kamleswaran, and today I will be analyzing the team process in Oppenheimer, specifically focusing on the main character, which is Robert Oppenheimer approach to managing the Manhattan Project team. I will cover four key areas, which is team dynamics, team communication, team decision making, and team cohesion and trust. So, for the first point, which is team dynamics, where Oppenheimer faced a unique challenge. He was managing brilliant scientists in military environment. He became the bridge between general group's military authority and the scientists' need for freedom. He also created a collaborative culture where ideas took precedence over rank. Scientists could openly debate and challenge each other, which means managing huge egos. For example, Teller pushing for hydrogen bombs, Fermi with his own methods, and many other strong personalities. Unlike military hierarchy, Oppenheimer fostered an intellectual community where innovation could happen. Moving to the second point, which is team communication, where Oppenheimer transformed communication with Los Alamos colloquia, which is open meeting that occurred weekly for any scientist to bring forth problem and get the opinion of everyone there. Physics, chemists, and engineers work together. Groove initially opposed this because it violated security compartmentalism, but Oppenheimer convinced him that scientists needed a broader perspective to solve problems. Oppenheimer also acted as translator, where he explaining complex physics to general in practical terms and translating military urgency back to scientists. Third point is about team decision making, where Oppenheimer used participatory decision making. He didn't decide alone, perhaps he convinced experts, encouraged intense debates, and synthesized their perspective into coherent decision. He had excellent judgment about timing, where knowing when to deliberate truly, when to decide quickly for military deadlines. For example, Trinity test decision about safe protocols and timing involved extensive team construction. This created buy-in because scientists helped shape the decision. So for the last one is about team cohesion and trust, where Oppenheimer built community, not just a workplace. Scientists and their families live together at isolated Los Alamos, creating tight bonds through shared experience. He attended social events, remembered personal details, and showed genuine respect for everyone's expertise. His authenticity and charisma created personal loyalty beyond professional duty. This cohesion became critical when the team faced moral question about the weapon they were building. In conclusion, Oppenheimer team process, which is collaborative dynamics, open communication, participation, and strong trust, were critical to the project's success. His approach shows that leading brilliant people requires creating collaboration, not just only enforcing control. That's all from me. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vish and I'll be explaining about the organizational behavior regarding Oppenheimer. Organizational process are cognitive guidelines, behaviors, and structure that surround work, providing context and guiding workers and team to complete tasks within behaviors and structure that surround work, providing context and guiding workers and teams to complete tasks within various areas of and evident in the way Robert Oppenheimer, General Leslie Groves, Ernest Lawrence, and Edward Teller communicated. The process of communication through decision-making and challenges around workforce processes associated with conflict and coordination of leadership consolidate the process defining the organization seeking to meet desired goals. I will continue with the communication provided. Communication process. Communication provided the foundation of cooperation in the Manhattan Project. Within the film, we see Oppenheimer embracing dialogue among science towards the academic model as practiced within science and for sharing policies across disciplines hierarchically. General Groves was less of an academic approach and pushed a practice of more restricted need to know communications to create and promote secrecy and discipline. Lawrence often had the role as the bridge of communication, often putting together scientists and their hard work with issues from policy making. Lawrence played the role of translating technique issues back to policy making terms that were non technical, while Teller on one regard had less consultation about policies and yet to some extent was at odds with Oppenheimer around promoting his ambition and discussions moving towards the hydrogen bomb issue. The patterns of communication represents the organization tension with working alongside each other creatively while also being communicated to working in secret while the individual ambitions from people and acted as a current overlaying to the collaborative work, secrecy and commitment to the ambitious. Okay, I'll proceed with the decision-making process. Throughout the duration of the project, decision-making was iterative process involving a degree of scientific judgment plus a degree of command military judgment. Oppenheimer, of course, was in charge of the scientific judgment and he presented many of his ideas and consideration to particularly the colleagues he consulted with before making his decision. Groves mostly was the decision maker and his decision making was informed by military timescales and national security. Lawrence also considered a practical judgment basis and part of the decision making process. For example, what was possible with available resource money, and there was consideration of process transition like uranium enrichment into large-scale industrial process. Taylor was always asking for alternative consideration and routes which with some tension at times but also considered potential longer-term implication of nuclear research. That will be all from the decision-making process. Okay, now I'll continue with the conflict management process. Given what was at stake, the personalities involved some conflict was unavoidable. Oppenheimer played an important in the mediating the ethical concern of some scientists with urgency required by the military. General Grove used his authority to keep open conflict to a minimum, but even in Grove's way of containing tension, the priority seems to be maintained discipline and order, even if it meant to not following dissenting opinion. Conflict within Lawrence's term was kept to a minimum throughout a greater focus on getting the job done, deployment to the field, and efficiency than on having long discussion about the ethics of project or research. Taylor was the only one who fomented a conflict throughout overt opposition to Oppenheimer while pursuing his own agenda. Conflict within the project was resolved in a different way, sometimes with co- compromise and other times with repression depending on the culture and image throughout the project. Okay, leadership and coordination process. Leadership and coordination were central to managing thousands of individuals towards a collective goal. Oppenheimer Oppenheimer displayed intellectual leadership and motivation in having the scientists come together around a collective vision beyond any petty concern they might have. General Grove had structural leadership by coordinating resources, making sure people had a gag order while not intended as such and defining their deadlines. Lawrence displayed scientific industrial leadership by bringing together the various big-scale labs to help translate research and development at the stage of production. Teller exhibited even firmer, divisive leadership in steering nuclear scientists of the post-war direction, although his relationship with the colleague was more on the quarrelsome end of any scale. Lastly, regardless of any disagreeableness, coordination among this leader led to the project, along to a bit of juggling at times. That'll be all from me. Thank you so much. Team and organizational process. The Manhattan Project, which was an anonymous alliance using military strength, scientific expertise, and tactical management to achieve one and only one goal, which was to create the atomic bomb, exemplifies the organizational and team activities of Oppenheimer. This repetitive story describes how team interplay, leader, organization, and corporate design evolve to meet the specific needs of war-related innovation. Well, Oppenheimer represents the scientific community, which involves inspiring creativity and collaboration, whereas Groves is the official boss and administrative restraint, ensuring that national interests are achieved efficiently. Their collaboration proved that practicative management and hierarchical control can coexist, which is indispensable to such a secret and complex operation. Nevertheless, because of good communication, common goals, and understanding of the group's mission, the team has managed to avoid disarray and fragmentation. The ability of Oppenheimer to unite the divergent perspective based on a shared objective is one aspect of transformational leadership and group work effectively resolve issue. This structure included responsibility procedure, communication rules, and task coordination. This development demonstrates the value of collaboration and organizational structure in quickly adjusting to new station. In the end, the Manhattan Project, inspired by the strategic leadership of Grove, the scientific leadership of Oppenheimer, and the contribution of Teller and Lawrence, shows how teamwork, and organizational procedure could turn a grand project into a historic, though dubious, achievement. The following the advancement of this concerted action, the significance of organization, communication, drive, and moral consciousness becomes apparent in the attain of success in high stress situation. That will be all from me. Thank you.
Finally, the film Oppenheimer showcases how leadership, teamwork, and organizational behavior operate under immense pressure, blending science, ethics, and politics. It highlights J. Robert Oppenheimer's transformational leadership that inspired creativity and collaboration, balanced by General Leslie Grove's authoritative, structured management style. Together, they demonstrate how visionary guidance and disciplined organization can drive success. Edward Teller's ambition and Ernest Lawrence's institutional influence reveal how personality, perception, and culture shape relationships can and outcomes within organizations. At the team level, Oppenheimer promoted communication, trust, and shared purpose, helping scientists stay united despite moral and emotional challenges. Overall, the film illustrates that true organizational success depends not only intelligence and structure but also on ethical integrity, emotional intelligence, and a collective sense of responsibility, reminding us that great achievements often come with deep moral consequences. That's all from us. Thank you so much.